All
And
right.
so I'm turning on Minecraft. We're going to talk about cities, and I can't do anything in this game. I literally get to stare at a wall, I guess.
Yeah. I mean,
I
you
can
can.
kind of
Oh
do it with
shit!
one hand.
You could use your right hand to move. That doesn't sound
And your
good.
right hand to move the mouse. Take the move slowly. Um,
Apologies to our friend Zach, who is unable to play.
I'm very sad. Well, I do get a nice view, and I'm going to do a little bit with my right. Just position myself so that I get a nice, lovely view.
Hmm.
And you all can
there
come
you
and
go.
visit me if you like, and I'll turn to say hello. Anyways, so we're talking about cities today.
We are. Let me get my notes out. I got my notes out. They were nearby.
What are notes?
I don't know.
What's it? I just was like, what are I like to write like at least talking points down. You
No,
know,
it's smart.
so that we
I was
don't-
mostly joking.
Oh. So. Um. I mean, we have joked that like I'm the expert here. So what do you guys want to talk about?
Okay,
I,
so in terms of city building,
it wasn't a joke, bud.
so in terms of city building, it seems like you've self-described yourself as the expert in the room.
Well, no, Sam.
Describe you as
Sam
the
did.
expert in the room. Well, you devised.
Am I wrong?
Okay,
They're my favorite part of designing. I'll say that.
okay, so
You made it, and you also made a game about working together to build a city.
I did
Well,
build. I did make a city building game. That is true.
That's the words I was looking for. You described it better than me. That means you're an expert.
cool. So here's something. Here's something. All right. So why don't we go over what you made, and then we can use that as a kind of like jumping off point in terms of like general city design ideas.
Sure. You can go
I
over
feel like
what I made.
that's a pretty good thing. So what did you make, Bizzle?
Well, first of all, I do want to say.
I don't know why I'm asking you redundant questions because I don't even know if I'm going to use them.
Well, that's okay.
for anything.
That's fine. It is very much in need of another look because I'm probably going to be expanding, basically doubling all the cards that are there. So
That seems like a good idea based off of like how it went.
well, how it went was fine. I just want to make it a full session thing, I think. And I want to, more importantly, reduce the amount of work I had to do after each game.
Was it a lot?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot. I had to make a lot of decisions, which the whole point of this is that the decisions are made as a group, kind of.
I see.
And I don't think it's a lot, but if I think that if I were to make a city building game, you'd want a fully functioning city to play in by the end, and not have other work. Let me find it though. Where is it? Role playing.
Oof, it is fucking hot today, man.
Yeah,
Is it really? It was overcast as hell down here.
Dude, it was fucking hot.
It's overcast here too. Okay. Yeah, so I built a game that was based off of The Quiet Year and built for Blades of the Dark. And the basic idea is you ask leading questions of the players each turn, I guess, and then the players have a more free-form way of deciding what to do. This is specific for Blades of the Dark City, right? This doesn't build any city. Because it has to have like a lot of conflict and a lot of people vying for the same things. But yeah, I mean, generally, a lot of what I ask myself, especially in chapter one, a lot of my chapter one cards, which were stuff about like faith, law, threats, No, that was more Blades of the Dark related.
That's just more Blazing in the Dark, yeah.
Well, not threats. No threats. You should always ask yourself what threats are outside the city, because it can be none, right?
Right.
But it generally determines the level of military and strength of the city, right?
Yeah,
I don't mean to get off topic, but I do have a question about that. You designed that game to be for Blades in the Dark, but it could very well work for any sort of thing, right?
I mean, you lose a lot, right?
Sure,
You have to
naturally, and it's
you
not
have to
perfect.
drop a lot out of the system in order to get it to work for things that aren't Blade in the Dark.
Not necessarily. I mean, if you want to have a conflict-heavy city with a lot of factions, the only thing that like really forces itself as Blades is all the questions about the dead and stuff.
Right. I mean, there's that stuff that you need to pull out, but like, if you're making a city that's like Blaze in the Dark, I'm talking about like any city generally. Like,
oh yeah,
like your system doesn't work very well for making cities that are like nice, cool towns. Like, you'd have to pull out half of it.
Yeah, but on the other hand, if you're making a campaign, why do you want a nice, cool town?
Well, the thing is I could see there being nice, cool towns in a city if there are multiple cities, the place they're going to. But if you're just like in Blades in the Dark, you're in that city, so there needs to be conflict and drama and all this stuff. And not every city needs to be as heavily that way, you know.
Like, there needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, you could have like a Sacramento, where nothing really happens. But I just don't think as like if you have the opportunity to make something, well, you know,
I mean,
they know
I'm not
it.
saying you're wrong.
They know it. I love Sacramento. There's a really cool coffee shop and / comic store, which I adore, and there's some decent places. But, like, everyone that I've met in Sacramento has talked about how little there is to do in Sacramento. So, you know, they know it.
They know it. We know it. Everyone knows it. Sacramento, get your shit together. Come up with some more.
Sacramento is great, but you know, it's not. If I were to start a role playing game, I would not start it in Sacramento. Well, I would start it in Sacramento. If I were to base a campaign in a city, it would not be Sacramento, because nothing happens in Sacramento.
But you would start a campaign in Sacramento. Sure,
because Sacramento is like the Pathfinder Sandpoint. It's a quiet place. It's not. I mean, there's crime in Sacramento, to be fair. There's crime in any major city, but like,
right. Yeah.
But like, it's a fairly chill. Like, I think of starting campaigns in places where nothing happens.
Wait, quick question. Would you start a campaign in Santa Cruz?
I suppose you could, yeah.
Okay.
It's small enough. I think it's very weird, though. I think you would want something to happen there.
I mean, I feel like this is because we literally.
I'd start it more. I'd more start it in Monterey.
Be right back.
What did you say?
I'd start it in Monterey before I started it in San.
Really?
Monterey is smaller and is more boring.
Oh, you would start a campaign in Monterey and then move it just to okay. Would you base a campaign in Santa Cruz?
I mean, I basically did.
That was a trick question because I know you did already.
San Camilo. I also had a one shot of Apocalypse World in Santa Cruz.
Oh, really?
What? You did Apocalypse World in Santa Cruz?
Yeah. The oceans were gone though, so it was a whole bunch of sand.
Awkward.
Well, it is an apocalypse.
It is an apocalypse.
I like that drastic apocalypse with the one where it's very clear.
The one where it's very, very clear and Santa Cruz kind of loses a lot of its meaning.
Yeah. I think the name had changed. I did the whole thing where also, Sam, you know this, the one shot of Apocalypse World where you played the sniper. First time you played Apocalypse World.
Yeah, that was a long, long time ago, though. I remember very little about that.
Yeah, it was in Santa Cruz.
Setting. I did not know it was in Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But anyways,
something new every day.
So I would say, as a general rule, what I build does not work for any city.
Right.
Because I was trying to make it more specific than that.
Right. But
I suppose I could make a less specific version that does work for any city,
right.
but I would have to consider what the themes are because
Right.
I don't think this game can be designed without specific themes in mind.
Okay, yeah, got it.
Yeah.
So I guess to do that, but basically the way in which the game is structured is that you've got these phases, and during each of the phases you have questions that are proposed to the players, and then the players answer those questions. And so I was just wondering if the way you think about cities in terms of how you build them is you have these questions, and it's just a matter of like how do you answer this question. You know what I mean?
I think that's definitely a big part of it. I also like to cities their unique flavor, right? I don't. And so I spend a lot of time figuring out how I want to describe the city. Maybe more time than I do actually figuring out the questions of like, how's the military work? You know?
Okay. Yeah.
Because I can ask that when I need, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I can kind of think, okay, well, how dangerous is this place? And I can think of, like, how important are the people inside, right? If there's royalty, there's a military, you know?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you think of the image of the particular city, and then you build from there. You build from like your thought of what is this place,
right?
Okay.
Because in part the image of the city dictates the people in the city and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So it's it's not so much. So you don't take you take a thematic approach, is what I'm kind of thinking.
Yeah.
Whereas as opposed to a systemic approach, as opposed to like, you don't come up with the image of a city first. You instead, for instance, how I tend to build out cities is I tend to build out geography and environment first. And then I look at places where cities should be and put cities there. And then after I know there's a city that's going to be there, I don't have an image for it. I instead will look to where is it located? You know, what is it on? There's a lot of thematics that already like can kind of popped ahead as that's happening. But basically, like it's built more organically. It's built more, or it's built more systemically. It's built more as a part of the thing.
Seems to me the way you city build is you world build first.
Yeah.
You deeply world build before you get to the city level at all.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I worry about what's inside when I get there generally, but partially it's because I think what's inside the city is more important than what's outside of it. Because I think the most interesting campaigns for me are city campaigns, and so like I stem from that thought already, where that's going to be my primary concern.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I guess from here it's kind of like, I guess what is the most important thing to know? I mean, you have the image basically. It's basically just like, what does it look like, or you get where I'm going with this, right?
Right, I have an image.
Yeah, you have an image of the city, and then you sort of build out from there. But I'm a little curious as to, I lost my train of thought. You know what, Sam? Maybe take over.
Well, I guess
you're
like
gonna ask a question that I think is answering of like what do you think is most important in a city when you're designing it?
Yeah. That's kind of what I was going for.
Yeah, for me, just to get my thought on this out is it's literally like, what's the purpose of the city? What do you hope? What will being in the city accomplish for the players?
Interesting. I mean, obviously interesting.
Yeah, I mean, well, because you can have a city that, like, I mean, going back to the idea of like, what's a good city to live in, right? What does that mean? That means it's a place that's fairly welcoming, fairly kind, generally, right?
Mm-hmm.
For level 1 players, they can't survive if they get attacked by crime bosses. You know what I mean? They will literally just die.
Yes, that usually gets in the way of players' survival.
Yeah, and so yeah, but like, is it like, are you hoping to have an intrigue campaign the city should reflect that? Are you hoping to have a campaign where there is a lot of crime, or a campaign where the city is a safe haven? And a lot of that will dictate everything.
Mm-hmm.
At least in like, that's the first thing I think of when I think of like, okay, what does this part of the city look like? What is the answer is always, what do the players need it to look like?
Right.
So that's an interesting question because and I hope I'm not completely dislodging this conversation, but
Yeah.
as an example from something I've done before, when I've say brought my players to a city, I had set up. Oh, I wasn't expecting them to come to the city, and I know what their purpose is. So like they've come to the city to talk to the king.
Mm-hmm.
So I set up the throne room. I worked with the player whose backstory was all over here to ask about the kings and stuff, and set up all the intrigue stuff that was going to happen there. And then they spent the entire time, and I don't mean this in a mean way, dicking around in town.
I know
I
your
had
group.
absolutely nothing planned for that. You're saying, and I agree with you in the sense that you plan a city for what the players are going to be doing there, but what about when they just want to do what the fuck ever? Like, you just have a thief who wants to go steal something from someone, or you have a, what's it called, warlock acting as a cleric who wants to go torment people. Like, I
Sure.
kind of just, for the most part, I kind of just improv, and I didn't think it turned out well,
That's
And
fair.
I'm trying to see like what could I have done better in that situation for
I also
for city building.
I also want to quickly make the distinction between what the players want to do there and what the players like. A city is not just what the players want to do there. That's not what I meant by that, because it's about what you want the players to do there, right?
Well,
But I mean, and that's
I didn't
and
want
that's
the players to be there.
Oh, no.
That is always an option.
I mean, that could have been the whole crux of the issue, right?
No, that's fair.
Because if you don't want the players to be somewhere, you're not gonna, right? It's not gonna be fleshed out in your mind.
Yeah. So, quick question.
Mhm.
Am I echoing on your guys's?
Nope.
Oh,
No.
okay, cool. So those little noises are probably coming from somewhere else then. I can turn you guys back up then. Cool.
But yeah. So I mean, but with that said, like, it's worth keeping in mind that if like there should be some basics to a city, regardless of like when I say oh, like, what are your players going to do there? I mean, like, there should still be a full city there, right? Even if all they're doing is talking to a king, there should be a city. There should be because no matter what, you're gonna have to walk them to the king, right? And so, what is the direction to the king, right? How important is the king? If there's a king, is there conflict with the king and the crown? Where does that lie? Things like that, right?
Sure.
I always make a habit of having one sort of like cultural practice that is unique to the city, because I think that's fun.
One cultural practice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's not a hard and fast rule, but like
Something to that effect, yeah.
Yeah, but like the idea is like, so, like, they're walking down the street and they see something they've never seen.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it gets interaction generally, which if you're trying to avoid, maybe don't do. But if you're trying to like, get them to interact with the thing, but I mean, like, what you said is tricky, right? Because ideally, you were hoping they would just interact with the king and then leave.
Right, and so when you build out a city, like it's a fully constructed place. Usually, what I do, just as a general rule, is when I know there's going to be a city, I prepare for the thing I expect them to do. But then there's a little bit of extra prep on top where you're like you can go into as much detail as you want. Basically, just like a quick overview: is this city nice to players? Is this city mean to players? Is this city going to be effective at or like? Are they poor? Are they rich? Just like come up with like maybe 3 descriptors. I tend to go with like way more detail with that, but like 3 general descriptors.
I'm shocked.
I know, like listen. I knew my players were gonna be in a town for a slightly larger than like a significant period of time, and so I literally just like drew out a full map of the city, and just said, yeah, okay, this works. I had like a
Yeah.
full map of the city, and I was like, here's all the districts, here are the names of the districts.
I think it's so easy to just draw a blob and
Oh,
then put
yeah.
some districts, right?
Listen, it is, but it makes it very easy for me to visualize it. It makes it a lot easier for me to build it.
Oh, I mean that's why I was going to say I think
okay.
every city should have some district map because those districts are going to dictate a lot about like with those districts you can much more easily suggest or like guide players to either where you want them to go or if they want to you can kind of guide them to that a bit more easily rather than just having this nebulous like there's a king there. I would also say furthermore there are like other things that I think are really like important, either like both monuments and landmarks, right? Because that pops out, right? That's more of that like how does that visual look, but also like waterhole bars and districts or like town squares that like everyone gathers in because you're not going to be able to describe the entire city in every part of the city. You can be able to describe scenes within the city. And so you want to find places where there's like pick places that are worth framing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah.
But like,
there's 50 bars. There's 100 bars. There's 200 bars. Like, but there's one really big bar in this corner near where you guys are staying. Aha.
Yeah, and so and the other thing is that there's like 2 or 3 word descriptors for every town. Like that's like that scene should be showing you one of those descriptors, or if possible, multiple. Like if it's poor, then the most popular bar in town has a bunch of like sort of drunkards around, like homeless people are all over the place, things like that. But if maybe this town is defined by its religiosity, in which case you're going to see priests all over the bars. The bar's not even going to sell alcohol.
Well, depends on the religion.
It depends on the religion, but if they're a religion that doesn't like
Maybe
alcohol,
they sell opium.
listen.
Maybe they like frogs for fun.
Listen, it's whatever the religion wants.
And you get to dictate that because you're the DM.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
Is you're gonna see like for instance in the religiosity town, the bar probably has like a symbol of the god that they worship, or maybe multiple gods, like behind the counter, things like that.
Right.
So like the aspects of the town that are the important parts, they help sort of guide you in the creation of the town and the structure of it in a number of different ways, and it should be reflected through your descriptions of the town as well.
So, all of this is excellent and great and extremely helpful. But is this all the kind of stuff I should plan beforehand? Because I know, Basil, a lot of what you did when we did Apocalypse World is you improvised. You didn't do...
Yeah.
Or did you do this kind of level of planning beforehand?
For places, I generally had an image in my head. I'm not someone who writes stuff down, so it really depends what you mean by planning. I think a lot and I think fast, which is useful which is why I improvise, right? Because
which is not something I can necessarily do all the time.
I know I can get away with it.
Right.
Well,
but I mean, the town of, I mean, how many cities, quote unquote? There was the town of Horseshoe. I had drawn the stadium for fun. The town of Horseshoe, I had a very vaguely horseshoe-shaped thing. Forget Riptide City's even name, but like...
Which city?
The one that Riptide was from. I didn't even expect to go there, as you remember, a bit because we were spending a lot more time there than I expected.
Oh, that explains it. But yeah, so how much prep did you do for each of those towns before we went there?
I don't know. 30 minutes?
Yeah. That's okay. That's more than I thought you were doing. So that makes...
Yeah, no, I mean, I spend a lot, maybe an hour thinking about a thing, but I spend every hour of the day thinking about something or other. And then I wrote stuff down for 15 to 30 minutes to solidify it and get some NPC names and what their roles were, because there it was much more. They're so much smaller than a full city, right?
Yeah, Apocalypse World towns are like little villages rather than like full towns.
Well, it depends on the size, but I specifically asked for like a city of people for it to be smaller groups.
Right.
Mm.
But I was gonna say that the other thing, Sam, I guess to finish the thought about your players and what they were doing and what you had expected them to do and all that. Either, right, in the future, make sure that you have things for people to interact with, right, and make sure you at least think about that, right? If
Which I definitely didn't. I definitely didn't.
Yeah. So that's one direction, and that's where having the districts with like a temple district or having a merchant's guild or having those sorts of like things planned, right? Those are going to go a long way for whatever their needs are. Or I mean, just like frame your scenes in a way such that really you only focus on the thing, right? You get escorted to the king. You're at the king.
Yeah. You can frame it as like you enter the town and go to the king, and your players might complain of railroading at that point, but it's like
it's not railroading. It's framing. You frame scenes.
It is framing it. It's true. Yeah.
I think my mistake probably was: is there anything you'd like to do before you leave?
Yeah,
that was probably my mistake.
But even then, it's like, okay, you do that.
Yeah, then you go do that thing.
Right. It's about how much importance do you want to put to that if you don't care about it, right? Does the warlock ultimately care about how they're tormenting random religious people?
Yes. No, he wanted to go in detail.
Well,
He wanted to role play. Yep. Nope. He wanted to role play how bad his character was. He was trying to set up his character to be a villain and get killed by the party at the end.
Right.
Well, I was also going completely against that and trying to save his soul. So, oops.
it's
Probably another.
That's a bit of a weird scenario there, but okay.
Yep. Especially because all the players knew, none of the characters did, and one of my players very much tried to metagame, finding out that he was bad and killing him. So,
whatever.
oops.
I would say
I find it more.
I don't
weird
think that's
that-
a big deal. I think that you approached it correctly by testing his determination every bit along the way, because that's what I do with players.
Yep.
It's like, oh, what do you think you are? Oh, okay, well, let's see if that's actually true.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, so framing, right? Because you can choose where to put them in the city, and if they want to roleplay that stuff, the city itself doesn't matter. The people in it don't matter, and making sure that's clear, right? Because it really sounded like this was a pit stop on an adventure, on a larger adventure.
Yeah.
And so if the city itself doesn't matter, and the people within it don't matter, them getting corrupted doesn't matter, and that
They were a big deal for a character's backstory, but we weren't going to get into that backstory till later. They just didn't.
Yeah. It's tricky. I mean, that entire group was really tricky. They kept it felt like their entire rhythm match was just to piss you off a lot of time.
That's not true.
I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying that's what it felt. That's what, like, every time you talked about it, I always felt about it.
Yeah.
And so it's just innately a tricky group to run.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, I think Zach and I have similar. I mean, I guess slightly different in some places, but like similar kind of approaches to like.
We have similar kinds of approaches in terms of like what we're trying to get out of the city, but I think we just have different methodologies to getting to that point.
Yeah, we definitely write different stuff down from the sound of it.
Yeah, we write different things down, but we're aiming for the same thing.
Yeah, I think one of the first things, one of my a city I spent a decent amount of time working on, because the campaign, like, there was a hall, like a couple arcs at the very least within it. Like, I spent a lot of time, and one of the things that I wrote down was the fact that I had a bath.
That it had a bath? There was a giant bath, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly,
one of the first things.
Yeah,
I would put a bath in every goddamn city I make. I love me.
Baths are good. Anyways, by the way, I was gonna.
But I mean, there ended up being a lot of scenes in that bath because I made it important enough, and I made sure the NPCs thought it was important, and it was a tourist destination and things like that. And that's why for me, like having monuments, right, or
Monuments.
things like that.
I try to do monuments, and I'm just bad at it for some reason. Like I'd argue my biggest problem with city building and why I'm not as good as Bazil at it. Probably not as good as Bazil. I haven't seen Bazil make many cities.
Yeah, I've never run D&D for you guys.
Yeah. So, my biggest problem is the creation of monuments and unique features. Like, I'm literally about to go run a campaign where the party is going to be, like, adventuring around, bouncing between lots of cool towns, and discovery is a really big aspect. So I'm like, I want every place to feel kind of cool or to feel interesting. And I'm like, I can do that with geography, I can do that with kingdoms, I can do that with politics, I can do that with lots of different factors. But, like, the towns, man, I'm so bad at this.
Yeah, a lot of it's just borrowing from other places.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay, now I remember. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, go for it.
But basically, like, the end goal, Sam, of when you're building a city is, like, you'll know you've got enough prep for a city that if somebody asked you a question, just a random question about this town, you'd be able to answer it within a minute. That's kind of where my goal is in terms of doing preparation. That,
Yeah,
like,
I think that's
you may
good.
not have, like, written... Yeah, you may not have written it down, but if somebody's like... So where does all the poop go? You can probably provide an answer.
Fair. All right. Fair.
Or
I also I think, Sam, sometimes you struggle just making decisions that don't matter much, right? It's true. You know what I mean?
I have no idea.
The thing is, I think also part of my issue was and this is something that I struggle with a lot, is I was hesitating to step on any of their toes because they help so much in the original world building.
Just gotta get, I think
that's one of the that is admittedly one of the harder parts. Like, that's why you need to basically run it like Bazil's game. Like, it's really good for running Blade in the Dark, but, like, once it's done, all of those factions, all that shit you built, that's Bazil's territory now.
Yeah, you gotta,
and it's all finalized too, in a sense. Like, everything is created and it is like how it is, and then go. It's now yours. It's not anybody else's. It's now yours.
And you have to treat all world building like that. There needs to be a detachment, and if your players weren't ready for that, then they're not ready for that sort of exercise.
We also just had a huge problem in world building in the sense that everybody kind of got their own little sections and worked on them, and the second anyone tried to mess with each other, they got mad and started.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're not. The group was not ready to be doing that sort of exercise. You need to have it. You should not. I mean, this is true of all role playing. If you're building something alone, right, and you don't want people to touch it, then you shouldn't be taking part in a collaborative, creative process.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's
collaborative. Sure.
Yeah.
That's to be messed with. Other people are meant to mess with that stuff.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah.
Like, the only time it's like that people should be like getting like upset over features is like when the core element of that feature is being like tampered with, and you're just like, that's the whole point of me adding this in.
Said gets contradicted.
Oh yeah, our direct contradiction.
Well, even then, the whole point of the game was like you're allowed to like go to war and mess things up because the whole point is you're not invested in your individual thing. You're invested in the story you tell together. But everyone kind of was like, I want to have my own little story things if I ever want to run or if I ever want to make a character, and it needs to be exactly so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's not the goal.
I mean, they're your friends, and I think that's great. I don't know if they're the best role players.
I mean, a lot of them are new. A lot of them are new, is the thing.
By which I mean, I'm not saying that they're bad role players. I mean, for what you like, their interests don't align.
Without a doubt.
And the entire point of role playing is that, like, the one thing in role playing is you can be the best of friends, you can be the worst of friends, but like what matters is, are you guys playing for the same reason?
Yeah.
If you don't, if you're not playing for the same reasons, or you guys just disagree on fundamental parts, it's just not going to work out.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that notion as well. That, like, you got to make sure everybody's on the same page with the campaign, and that everybody understands what the campaign is about before it starts. So that way, this is just really just getting back to the importance of a session 0. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But anyways, back to cities.
Back to cities. You know what? I like building in cities.
What do you like building in cities?
I like. For some reason, I am best when I am building a city and I'm sticking some kind of institution in it, like an academy or like a palace or like usually it is some version of a macro structure that I am then like applying onto the city. That's
what exactly do you mean?
Like an academy that has multiple academies throughout multiple cities, or like a palace, which implies that there's like a kingdom, a larger set around it, or like a guild hall, which implies that there's other guild halls or like other sort of guild facilities in other places. I'm really good at like overlaying the macro elements of a campaign onto the micro of a city, and I find that to be a really interesting aspect of it. That like cities are their own unique features and they're really cool. And I'm gonna turn my fucking screen to look at the sunrise. But they're also like not, they're not, I'm blanking, but basically like they have their own unique features, but they also can be vessels through which you can sort of make displays about the rest of the world. Like a temple to a particular god can show up in one town, but it's going to be something like there's going to be a temple or a shrine to that god in every town, and it's just sort of something that's going to be contiguous as the game goes on, and you can do that through your city building. And again, that's what I like doing the most, and that's what I'm probably best at in terms of city building.
I'll come to a shock to learn that that's what I'm worst at.
Listen. We all knew where this was going. You don't have to shame me.
I wasn't shaming you.
No, I was just pointing out that we're always good at opposite things.
We are, yeah. Vizil, I feel like if we both sat down and collaborated, we could make the most insanely cool campaign setting.
Probably not, because I wouldn't put the work in.
Vizil.
My technique is I never put enough work into stuff. Because I improvise so much of it, and you're the opposite.
Or, well, okay, how about this? How about I build the macro to a campaign, and then you run the campaign and fill out all the micro as you go?
It could work, maybe.
That could work.
We'll see. I think.
Fucking commission me.
I think we should work on together for this stuff, because that would work better. Or tools for build for. I think we'd be good at that.
I feel like we would be good at that. I feel like we would understand that.
Well, we'd be on the same page there, I think, more easily. Right?
Oh,
we
yeah.
could kind of the things I might ignore, you could fill in, and vice versa.
Yeah. Oh, right. That's true.
Anyways, yeah, I generally.
You generally what?
I'm very good at getting cities as entities within themselves. Cities within a nation, or cities within or how religion is the same, just no matter where you're from. That stuff feels weird to me.
It's admittedly very easy to do. For me at least, it's very easy for me to stick it in there, because it's just like, oh, well, they worship this pantheon or this god, so there's going to be a temple of that here.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's I mean, beyond that, right? Like figuring out how to keep the cities like feeling different when they have a homogenized religion, or are all part of the same nation and therefore all run the same, or whatever, right?
So that's where that's where the exception ball gets rolling. So like a kingdom that's run in a certain way could have an exception in one particular town, and like every town has its weird fucking exceptions for the particular environment of that town. So like the king could demand taxes that are at 13% every year, but the citizens of this particular town they're all minors, and so it's only this group of people that have paid the full 13%, and the rest of them only pay like 5%. Or they provide, their mining goods are what's sent to the capital and not straight gold.
Yeah, or the city has actually enforced a different taxation where the rich in the city pay more than the poor. And so it adds up to 13% of the total population, but...
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like
I
every
see what
town
you
is,
mean.
so like and so for like a kingdom, like the kingdom will set numbers of parameters of how laws are created, but the towns themselves likely decide how those laws get implemented. But yeah, so there's lots of like little quirks, and again, it becomes then a focus of like, what does the larger, what does the superstructure say, how does the substructure react to that superstructure?
Say that's superstructure right there.
Sounds like a super duper structure. Sorry, that was dumb.
Speaking of
That's what I'm saying.
speaking of superstructures, Bazil, one of these. When you are done with your, god damn it, stop telling me I'm idle.
Zach.
Around. Yeah.
Did you know that you were idle just now?
Oh my god.
You were kicked off for being idle, in fact.
I'm more than aware of that one. So I would really love to get a like full copy of all the questions you ask in your city builder thing. Because I feel like it would make it way easier for me to build cities and make them unique.
Yeah, I mean, I have
Oh,
the
no.
link of the draft for my thing.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was too idle.
I know. Sam, I thought you two were playing the game.
I was uploading Bazil's mystery deck onto Frogtown. It was my bad.
Oh my god, my commander's a mystery?
Because I'm probably gonna upload this one to YouTube again. For the people who are listening, we're all gonna play mystery. We're gonna play Magic the Gathering mystery commanders against each other, and by mystery, each one of us is building a deck for the other one. So.
And everything starts hidden. You don't get to look at your commander.
Yeah, you don't even know what your commander is until you cast it.
Amazing.
This is a known format. I did not come up with it.
Oh, this is? Well, shows how much we know, huh?
So, by the way,
How's
quick
that?
question.
It's not a common format.
Are you supposed to know what your colors are?
Oh, for sure.
Are you supposed to know
You're gonna know because you're gonna know how to
Yeah, I was about to say. Okay, that was about to say.
the casting cost of the commander,
Okay.
which is what those dice were, right? I sent a snap or sent a screenshot with the dice. Those were not actually the colors. I just put random stuff just to.
Cause yeah, it's not like they'd ever have a red-white commander that would be useful.
What do you mean? I love red white.
I was just joking.
Hey, listen.
I have a red white commander deck.
I know both of you do. I know.
I have not built my feather deck, so I don't actually have a red white
That's
commander.
vehicle deck.
In progress.
But I mean, yeah.
Anyways,
get back to cities. Sorry, that was a total non sequitur.
yeah. I mean, I sent it to you. I think a lot of those questions are very much related to the specifics of Blades in the Dark.
Right.
And to factions interacting. That said, since I'm going to be doubling basically the size of the game, I'm going to have some parts that are going to be more general, like basically like the things I've been having to add by hand, like where the districts are, where people get their food, where the majority of factories are found, that sort of thing. I always forget to add. And that's or like I always have to add for the playtests of that game.
Right.
So that's the thing I'm going to be.
Well, I was just saying because like I would really love a like particular like tool or I would love to have like a tool or a maybe guide, but basically it's just like a series of questions that you answer as a way to like flesh out a city, especially one that you're going to be spending a little bit of time in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's one. Craft 5 scenes of what daily life looks like, right?
That's a good way to do stuff. I like that.
That seems better than anything I've ever thought of. Because again,
Yeah.
I'm always coming from the macro, so I'm always just like,
Yeah.
what's the religion like here? Rather
That's
than
how I
understanding.
generally get my right, because we talked about how I'm more theme based and flavor based, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, thinking of how two people might share a drink, or thinking of how, and then from there thinking, okay, well, how is that drink special to where they're from, and like, how might it be poured, or in what might it be poured, or what might be in it, or things like that, right? And then thinking of like, okay, how would royalty celebrate, for example, as a potential part of daily life? How what's the poor person thinking about when they're working, right? That sort of thing, right? And you can kind of get these glimpses into daily life, and then when players are on the street and just walking along, you can tell them what they see.
That's a really good way to handle things.
So that's what I mean when for me the flavor and having monuments and things like that is like, what is, if you were to walk around that city, what do you see? And that's really what you should be focusing on first, right? And then we get to like building campaigns within cities, and that's more of like, okay, well, where does the conflict lie? But like when just building a city,
but yeah,
when building a city, what I care most about is what everyday person would see, because ultimately that's what the adventurer is going to see.
Mm-hmm.
The adventurer is not going to know about the inner workings of the church unless they really, dive deep into the church.
Yeah.
But no matter what, they're going to know about the Colosseum that's 5 stories tall.
Because they're definitely going to go fight in it. Because literally, you dangle that in front of any group, and they're going to go for it.
I know.
That is like,
I know groups that straight up wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't know if I would, but I'd definitely go bet there, right?
Yeah, you can.
Right.
I literally do not see
every group will at least go check it out.
Yes,
and
for sure.
That every campaign will have a scene there, whether it's fighting or it's doing something else, right? But it's the same thing as the giant bathhouse or the massive tree in the middle of town that was transformed into a bar and that's been there for 500 years, or like you can just think
the
of these
tree bar. I love that.
Yeah, but like you can kind of just come up with these things of like what would be really like, what would demand your attention if you were to walk into a city, right?
Yeah,
and then you throw one of those, or maybe 2 of those, or maybe 3 of those in a city, and you got your monuments, right? And you got like everyone's daily life is related to, like, I mean, when you're in Paris, especially in certain parts of Paris, you can't live a day without seeing the Eiffel Tower if you go outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd imagine that's a hell of a landmark in that town.
It's fairly tall, or like, I mean, Golden Gate Bridge is big, and even if you don't care about it because you've lived there your whole life, you're not going to forget it, and I think it in some ways, that and like the hills of San Francisco, the hilly nature of San Francisco, are probably what occupy at least some parts of everyday life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was literally about to say that like the hills of San Francisco, while not being a landmark, is a thing that defines that town.
I would say it's a landmark in a sense. I mean, literally, we have Lombard Street, which is just known because it's a deep street that winds a bit, which would not exist if not for hilly San Francisco.
You kids and your SnorCal, God.
Did you just?
LA is harder. LA. It's
no, I was gonna say San Francisco, and then I switched halfway through and said NorCal. I did not, in fact, say SnorCal. It is a very cool place.
Oh,
that's a really good burn, though. I like that.
It's a pretty good burn.
It is a good burn, but I didn't mean it. Like, there's nothing behind it.
By the way, so LA is pretty easy. You could just say the Hollywood sign. I know it's not actually LA.
Hollywood's not even easy. LA sucks. Don't tell any of my LA friends that I said that.
I like LA.
Sam, I am literally uploading this to YouTube.
LA doesn't suck. I just hate big cities.
None of his
give
friends
me
are
anxiety.
gonna listen to it anyways. You're fine.
Literally, I just don't like big cities. There's nothing against LA. It's got fantastic food. It's got fantastic people. It's just I'm not even a claustrophobic person, and big cities make me claustrophobic. Thanks.
But yeah, I mean, in the same sense of like Golden Gate and hills for San Francisco, LA, it's Hollywood sign and traffic.
Yeah,
It's
traffic.
100% traffic.
And
Welcome.
like the highway, right?
It is absolutely the
highways, There's
405.
a lot of them, right? And like that's a big part of San Diego doesn't really have that. But like, I mean, I guess that's considering in a sense that's what's it called? Not. I mean, almost the landscape of the city, right? And like,
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. Going back to how Zach builds, right, where he takes that into account and where a city would be built and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that's a great way to see how everyday life is affected as well.
Yeah. Being able to see, and like, especially when you start thinking about proximity to resources.
That's true.
Like, that's probably the most interesting. Like, because I had a city that I put my players through called Marhold, right? It's in the kingdom of Agria. And it's kind of a breadbasket kingdom, and the city is, like, all about that farming life. It is a massive city with, like, all sorts of things going on in it. But farming and agriculture is a really important aspect to the society there. And so, like, I was able to describe certain things. Like, there's a lot of farmers who, like, literally live in the city and then just take, like, a personal boat across the river to go work on their fields, like, just outside town, just outside the city.
Nah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And like, you know, like, the bottom road of the town is kind of, like, muddy and tracked, and it's this big circle. And there's, like, lots of, like, little markets on the low road that's just basically just, like, farmer's market after farmer's market after farmer's market after farmer's market. And so it's just, like, just taking into account, like, what's Marhol surrounded by? It's literally at the intersection of two rivers, and it's surrounded by farmland. So, like, who lives there? A bunch of fucking farmers.
Right. Makes sense. I do want to preface, I never try to think of historical accuracy when I build cities, because it's not the kind of player I am. I always just build modern cities in fantasy worlds.
Right. Well, what I'm saying by that is that
I'm not saying that what you're saying. You made me come to that realization because, like, I mean, yeah, I'd probably build a city of farmers, but usually I just build a city full of merchants.
What?
The usual sorts of people you see in cities today.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I tried to think about, like, because, like, for me, like, Agria was the breadbasket country, you know what I mean? So, like, what's the capital going to be like there? It's probably going to be the breadbasket, which means there's a ton of agricultural workers there. So I was just thinking in terms of, like, straight, what's the theme of the place that I'm in?
Right, that makes sense.
I had, like, not Elven specifically, but a forest city called Isluna that was built up in trees, essentially. It was Rivendell, except more like a bunch of fucking tree houses. Because they were
and you had that like half human, half dwarf separated by like above ground, underground as well.
Yes. Oh, not Vondarth. Yeah, it is Vondarth. What? I forget. Dwerak.
Hold on.
There
I'll
we
be
go.
right back.
I did it.
Yeah.
Oh, Dwerak was dope.
Yeah, it's where Hubert like settled down.
Yeah. I really liked that city. I might have over-focused on it, given it its minor relevance in the campaign. But Dwerak was pretty dope. Like, listen, man. Okay, it was basically a city near a mountain pass, built on top of a hill. It's like, but dwarves started it, so they actually built in the hill. And then humans built on top of it, and they had to figure out how to piece that one together. So they have like a parliament going on there. It's wild.
No, I mean it worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was really cool because politics was built into the city, as was the landmark. Like everything was built into it by the nature of it, of how it existed.
Yeah, exactly. And that's honestly that's how I love doing cities. By the way, this is the reason why all my dwarven cities are actually good. What was the name of the very first town for the start of the Pathfinder campaign?
Torgos.
Torgos. Yeah. Remember how Torgos had a really, really interesting structure to it?
Yeah, it was great.
And how it's very easy and obvious. You're always going to remember, like, the stuff that happened, or, like, you're always going to remember Torgos as a city. It's like, because it was like built into like a cavern based off of like a giant waterfall, and like had all these layers to it, and like it's really cool and interesting. It allowed me to like structure the geography to be like, when the geography is the big primary factor in a town, I tend to do really, really well with it.
Yeah.
Because like, for me, it's like really easy to be like, well, how does the geography of this affect how it works? It's the same with Dwerak. And the best way you get fantasy towns that are heavily impacted by the geography is you're just like, what if you built in the ground? And what if the ground itself was weird? And so dwarven cities just tend to be what I'm thinking about a lot.
That's fair.
Note to self: I will always play a dwarf in Zach's campaigns. Then, from now on,
I'll never play a dwarf ever.
Like, okay, but like, I don't have a good specific city example, but like, I don't know how exciting the dwarves are going to be in my latest campaign. I have to come up with some sort of like wild fucking structure thing. I'm getting better with elves. I'm getting generally better with forest people because I'm like trees and roots, and I can just lean on that forever.
or fungus,
Or
just like the
fungus.
Mushroom Kingdom.
God, the Mushroom Kingdom, y'all never want to, but I want to set a campaign there.
What are you talking about? We've been in the Mushroom Kingdom.
Which mushroom?
It's just this. You didn't call it that. We called it that.
Where was the Mushroom Kingdom?
Where Alden Dart is, and we met Coldess.
Oh, that
Yeah.
Mushroom Kingdom. My bad.
Yeah, the one you don't call Mushroom Kingdom. We
The
call
one
Mushroom.
I call it the Isle of the Grove Tenders, but
It's definitely
Yeah.
the Mushroom Kingdom.
Super. Look, I barely Mario because I just never had Nintendo, but it's still.
it's meant to look like a swamp with a bunch of wooden structures there.
It sounds like the Mushroom Kingdom.
Sounds like the Mushroom Kingdom, bud. As it turns out, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's the mushroom.
But
Oh man.
yeah, I do want to make a point related to like elven cities and dwarven cities.
I see. I know where this is going.
Okay, well, I'll finish my sentence then.
Yeah. Hey, Zach, finish his sentence, bud.
Hey, bud. Maybe don't rely on stereotypes.
Oh, that's not at all what I was gonna say.
Oh, never mind.
I thought that's what you were gonna say, though. I was with Zach.
No. Like dwarven stereotypes are dwarven stereotypes. Yes, they're racially coded and maybe not always great, but like Jewish people don't live underground as far as I'm aware. So
That's true.
that part of the dwarves are fine.
Wow, I had never even thought of that. You've just kind of opened my eyes.
Wait.
Wow.
Wait.
Shit.
Are you like fucking around or?
I think he is.
Okay.
No, I'm not fucking around. I don't think about. Sorry.
That dwarves are a Jewish stereotype, right?
I didn't. I never thought about that.
God.
Yeah.
Okay, for a split
Yeah.
second there, I thought Sam's revelation was that Jews don't live underground.
It's well known.
No, what the fuck?
well known. It's not well known. It's a sad truth about Tolkien is that elves are coded like Nazis and the Aryan race, and dwarves are coded like Jewish people. So that's fun.
That's not so fun. Overall, not so fun.
Overall, not so fun. But that's not at all what I was gonna say. Like I think you can rely on stereotypes in the same sense that when it comes to cities, looking at international cultures, doing your damnedest to not like fully appropriate anything. To at least look for inspiration on how other people live is important practice. But what I was gonna say is, in a large enough city, and I suppose a tolerant enough city, you should be able to find everyone and everything, right?
Right. Yeah.
Which, I mean, yes, does mean all, right? I will never build a city without a single anything. There will be at least an orc. There will be at least a furball. There will be, like, not even half orc, just full orc. There will be kenku. There will be anything, right? Because it's a city. It's so large. You might get looks, but you're never going to get 5, right? Unless someone's racist, in which case you could get 5 looks. But like eventually, like people in cities have seen everything, with once again the exception of.
I feel like again, this is a matter of like very large cities.
Yeah, no, this is, but I mean, I'm not talking about often. Villages and the towns are I'm much less likely to make important because I'm not going to build a town campaign. Right, I'll build a city campaign, but I won't build this campaign based around a single town, just because it's small, or it's about building the town up. You know?
Yeah, I was like an inch away from saying like, oh, you could do a campaign where you build it up, but yeah, you beat me to the punch.
Honestly, that sounds fun. I mean, I don't know if Basil, you've gotten to this part, but there's a side quest in Breath of the Wild where you help build a town. That was my favorite fucking thing in the game. I would absolutely jump on an RPG where you help build a town up.
Yeah, it's just going to be super slow because
it's the most plotting of all fucking adventures.
Building a town takes a while.
It takes time. Basically,
well, there'd be time skips and shit. Like,
right? Yeah, no, it'd be like 6-month time skips.
Yeah, I mean that's why it gets abstracted. Things like the Quiet Year, or things like where you do build a whole town, or things.
By the way, that particular campaign in D&D is basically the best campaign ever. If you're like, I want every fucking skill proficiency.
Well, you can't train skill proficiencies.
Yes.
You can only tool proficiencies.
Yeah, I want every fucking tool proficiency, every fucking language.
Hey, that's what I want in Mega Dungeon, but we don't have that kind of time.
Yeah.
Well, we
I just want to be able to. I just want the Weaver proficiency, so I can make, because I don't think anyone else is gonna have it.
I'm slightly tempted. Oops, my bad. So I'm slightly tempted to, and maybe this is, I don't know if this is metagaming kind of thing. This is something I'm not sure if I'm gonna make, but I might create an item that allows you to learn something quickly, but it would be much later in the game.
At which point you still won't have enough time to learn anything because it will be in the game.
Basil.
I mean, I'm just pointing it out. There is a flaw to this.
I mean, I would put it early enough that like you would be able to learn something with it.
Okay.
You can get some use out of it.
I'm just messing with you.
Or
but yeah,
like
so
back
to the point about like there being all races. That also that rule also applies to all shops, which means if your characters are looking for something,
they can find it.
Unless you can find a specific reason as to why you couldn't, they can find it.
Yeah. Unless it's like this town, or like, I'm trying to think of like a specific reason why something wouldn't be in town. It's a little harder than why something could be.
I want this legendary weapon. Yeah, that's not gonna be there.
Okay, yeah. If you want a unique item, that's hard to find in one town.
If you want a temple that is in a city that is forced monotheism,
it
might not be there.
Yeah, it's another.
Yeah, I mean that's the sort of thing I mean though. If you want to purchase alcohol where alcohol is banned, it probably still will be because prohibition exists, right? But it's also gonna have all major players going like Zach's thing about all the gods are gonna like all the temples for all the gods are gonna be there. It's also gonna have embassies for every major country. It's also gonna have some sort of arm for most crime syndicates.
I'm trying to remember. I know you don't think about historical accuracy at all whatsoever, and it's not at all important to your city building and stuff. But
what is it?
Historical accuracy.
You don't care about historical accuracy, and that is absolutely valid. I'm just trying
to think. I just don't know enough about history.
All right, in the medieval era, did they actually have embassies? I don't think they did, but like, I know how they actually did it.
Look, they have embassies in Civilization 6. So there must have been.
They had representatives of other countries.
They did. It's just that they would all just be like randomly hosted in the palace, as far as I know. That's generally speaking what would happen. Is just like
how far is this place?
Who lives in the castle?
How far is Drew's place?
Really far.
Are you riding the rail to Drew's place?
I'm gonna stop riding the rail to Drew's place because I think I saw something in the water.
I am about to take the train back from Drew's place, so.
Yeah.
Well, that works out because I just jumped in.
Did he build it up? Is it still just a desert? Is it
it's still just a desert. It looks like he's gonna try to build some other stuff. He's built some trees. He's built like trees in the area around him, but
I don't know. Like I did not. I like Sam.
Hi.
And Drew's not here, but But like you guys, like really.
At least you didn't call me
went-
Drew.
You went really far away to build out your bases.
Well,
I didn't go that far. The train
Sam
to
had
my
a
place.
reason, and Drew had a
Really-
reason,
Well,
actually.
I was just saying that it was just because like I did not go far away from the roost.
You stayed close to Daddy.
No.
You're your mama's boy.
I stayed close to Daddy. But yeah, and so like I'm just like I feel like I'm very centrally located though. It makes it so nice because like when people go to meet up, I'm just like, oh, I'm already there.
I
Bazill's
just have
like
never
the next
seen-
closest, but Bazill's also the person who built the home base. Bazill is Daddy.
That's me.
Oh wait, who was
Yeah.
Daddy?
Me.
But who was
I'm
Mom
also-
then?
Also me.
I thought that was Sam. I thought Sam was Mom, and then
I'm Mom.
Sam's big
Hey,
brother.
Mom. Oh,
Okay.
a big brother's coming for you.
Oh, why'd you do?
Yeah,
that?
1984, okay?
I'm this bug, and like snails, I just kind of have sex with myself. No, I think snails
There you
can
go.
change gender. I don't think there are other things that can just have sex with themselves. I don't think snails.
Snails are pretty cool.
Okay.
Anyways, I guess you didn't want to learn about snails.
I didn't.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, so that's the thing that I jotted down of like any city large enough should have that. And so when you're thinking about okay, well, what would be there, right? Going back to Sam's thing about like you want to bother people at churches, well, they're there, right? You can kind of just imagine, right? You could maybe take a small second to think about like, well, how prevalent is the church there? Is that specific church there? Because like you might have trouble finding a big temple, right? It could be just like one of those things outside of a like built into a like a portable home, basically, like
Right.
super like small, but like it's there.
You spend the
And-
next, you spend the next 6 hours wandering around town looking for this fucking temple. Then you find it, and it's like a one-room building that's attached to somebody's house.
Yeah.
It was very nice.
Oh, it's
I mean,
lovely.
I only built my Sea Lab out there because the coral reef was there.
Oh, we're just talking about
we were
we're
talking
talking
about-
about cities in general, but yeah,
Oh, sorry, I zoned out there
You're
for a
fine.
second.
you're,
Oops.
you're all good. You're all good.
It's okay.
um,
It's a sea
but-
lab.
But yeah, you could build an underwater city. It's weird, but like it could work, I guess.
I mean, I think it'd be fun for a heavy plot point. Like, I don't think just having an underwater city.
Oh,
Well, I say that, and in our world building, someone made a merfolk city in a trench.
Oh,
We've
Oh,
just never
yeah.
gone there.
that makes sense. But like, yeah, they don't get much visitors. They probably like at that point you have to consider trade, and they
do you
probably
guys
have
remember?
another
So
over a water
I
part
played
of their
I
city.
played God games with some of my internet friends, and let me tell you, they got fucking wild with their ideas. Like they had whole civilizations underwater. It was crazy, and they weren't.
Oh well, this was with Jenna, right? Because I played.
Oh, wait, is this Jenna's? Is this the campaign world that we made? And she
Well,
had
I was
that
gonna
sort
say because we I ended up playing Legend campaign where Jenna was DMing us, and I think it was in that world.
Oh yeah, that was originally a Legend campaign. Yeah.
Hi, Bazil. I just passed over you.
Oh hi.
See you later, Bazell. I haven't seen either of you guys. No one comes to visit me.
I'm coming to visit you. Hold on.
Okay.
Are you back at your treehouse?
I've never seen.
I have
Drew's-
not. I have not left the roof of my treehouse. I started here.
All right, I'm
I
gonna-
did not. I did not.
I'm gonna go ninja parkour over to you then. Give me a sec. I'm still on the.
Okay.
Road
I'll,
to-
I'll reposition myself so I can greet you. Although
But yeah,
you cannot jump on my roof.
I can if I use dirt blocks.
Oh.
Do we want to talk a bit about like how to build this campaign around a city?
Sure.
Yes. I.
I have no idea how to do that.
It's hard. Well, I mean, it's
Is
really just.
it?
I take it back. I made
That's
Torgos.
fair. It is. It's not easy.
It's not easy, but it's also like I probably could have set your guys' entire Pathfinder campaign in Torgos, and I sometimes
Yeah.
I feel like I was dumb for not doing that.
I mean, the entire first 4 seasons, quote unquote,
Well,
were in Torgos.
The second season wasn't in Torgos, but it was specifically.
Oh, true. Well, we visited a nun. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like
And she was very pleasant, and then
It definitely didn't have a lot of exploding robots that hurt us in snowstorms.
no, it was just a nun,
It was just a
It was
nun.
just a nun.
It was just a
a
nun.
single nun.
There were also no.
That
weird,
wasn't a
creepy
robot
thing.
that exploded and
There were
killed us at all.
There were no demons trapped in statues.
That one we just laughed at them and walked on.
Oh, this is the village.
Yeah, it's past the village.
Well, I just got to the village. I'm just appreciating it.
It is.
Didn't you guys say he had some sort of like raised gardens or something?
That's at the desert, and
That's at the
you're
desert.
not even like halfway to the desert.
He's beyond halfway. He's a little past halfway. The problem is that you have to press the forward button because Drew didn't fucking do the power rails right.
Oh, it's because he has too many sharp turns which slow down the cart.
Well.
And there are places where the trees slow you down.
But
But anyways, yeah, I mean, I think I don't disagree that it's hard. They're my most interest. They're the campaigns I'm most interested in. I'll say that.
okay.
Oh geez, yeah, you're slowing down a lot here, huh?
Yeah. See.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he needs to smooth out these turns. Yeah, doing a right turn down. That's why all my rails are diagonal.
Yeah.
I think I have one right turn, but anyways, yeah. I generally like it for a few reasons. One is my favorite part about role playing is interactions between people.
I would agree.
And city campaigns are the only ones where every single action will be taken by a person or because of a person's will.
I mean, that's true for any campaign to a certain extent.
No, because if you get a dragon, dragons have their own wills.
That's
Um,
okay. So you're talking. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I would classify a dragon as a person.
Yeah,
Well,
I think the power dynamic
Exactly.
gets into
there is a
play.
power dynamic. Oh, I see. There's a Sam.
And if you got an aboleth, right? An aboleth can't think,
Okay, right. Good point.
but they're a god of sorts. If you have a god in play, right? But like it's
The gods definitely affected stuff in the Pathfinder campaign.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I guess more specifically, you like organizations, right? Organizations of people with single-minded wills, like working together in cities. I think a city like the way a city campaign works is very different from the way. Oh, this is a fun little entrance. And there's a cart on the floor for some reason.
Axe murderer's coming to get you, Zach.
Oh no.
Axe murderer's coming to get you, Zach. Let's
That's
go,
always-
Zach. Oh.
I blocked you. You cannot pass.
Oh,
Dang
look at that. There's a traitor here.
It was me, the axe murderer. Oh, I can't jump over this.
Where's the terrace? Where are the farms?
Behind it.
Yeah. You have to like run a little bit past. Oh my god, close the hatch.
Oh, is it that house?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the house.
Oh, for some reason I thought that the house was like generated because he said that there was something here that was generated, right?
It might be. I don't know.
We thought it looked like we were like, whoa, is that generated? We're like, nah, Drew probably made it.
Oh, what door is this? Oh, it's an acacia tree.
Oh hey, there goes Sam following the path I made.
So colorful.
Hi.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's pretty.
It's very
It's
pretty.
gorgeous. It's awesome. Very much feels like a Greek museum or something.
It kind of does, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But yeah, so that's anyways. That's why I like city campaigns so much, is because the entire thing, even if it's the combat heavy or one of the most combat heavy things, unless you're just having a war in a city, like you're gonna spend a lot of time talking compared to
You're really gonna reference Sorgos again there?
no,
Oh,
we spent a lot of time talking in Torgos before the war
it's
happened.
True. There was a
Right.
lot of
And then we
Torgos
spent a lot of time fighting in Dorcas.
Yeah.
Still,
No, I was talking. I thought that war was really well. I loved
Yeah, it was
really.
probably. It felt like such a climactic thing,
and chaotic.
and
thing,
then
which
like
is very
we
important.
started to go into the Chirath section, and then it kind of lost momentum when we started to go on the journey.
Yeah.
You know, like, and even then, like, it was still good up until I think the tournament, and that's when I think people kind of started to lose interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Which-
I mean, I'm not here to I
No,
suppose we can spend some time dissecting points, Zach, and kind of see where we could improve and where we could change things. But like, I was just
city
saying
section was fine.
that the Torgos is very much that sort of. We spent a lot of time talking to people and having those social encounters that to prevent a war, right? Like for as long as we could, and then it still happened, and then we had to deal with that, and whatever, right? Water under the bridge, I suppose. But like,
sorry, I removed your agency from being from keeping the war.
No, I mean
No.
It's not that the agency was removed; it's lost. We failed to prevent the war. That's all. It's not a loss of agency. It's there's a win state and a lose state. We tried to prevent it, and it didn't happen.
We lost preventing the war, but we killed the goddamn dragon in the most memorable epic battle ever. That was so much fun.
Yeah, it's good.
And then immediately going and getting absolutely drunk, and then immediately my character losing everything that he held dear. After we got drunk. Well, no, it was before we got drunk. I just didn't learn about it until after we got drunk.
Yeah.
Wait, rewind for a moment. When did you get drunk? I'm trying to remember the drinking.
We killed the dragon, and then we went and got drunk with the angel bartender who was always there.
Oh,
and
right.
then and then we learned that Torgo or the academy got blown up.
Huber's grandfather died as well.
Yes.
No, that was before
that was before the war.
I need to restudy the beginning part of the campaign.
That honestly, the beginning part of that campaign was the best part of that campaign. I will always stand by that.
Yeah,
specifically,
I remember enjoying it.
Specifically, None was probably the best part of the campaign, despite the fact that it was an utter detour. Speaking of, how about ruined cities?
Ruined cities don't play the same.
I know that. Okay.
Yeah, so for me, they're not city campaigns. They're dungeon crawls.
Okay. Yeah, they're more standard dungeon affairs.
Well, just there's no people.
You make
right, and so you I feel like what makes a city isn't building as much as the people.
I would agree with Bazil. Ruined cities become I think there is some similar type of planning you would do, but I think overall, it's a different beast.
Yeah, it's not the same kind of campaign. It's not to say I don't enjoy it, but yeah, I mean, my favorite stuff has political intrigue and has potentially crime, can have some religious undertones.
Oh, by the way, so speaking of, Mundra actually, the general region has some examples of some really interesting cities in them. I'm just sorry at this point. I feel like we've talked a lot about in terms of generalities about how to build cities and stuff like that. I just want to talk about interesting cities and how to make a city interesting, essentially, via example. But Mundra had a number of cities that I felt were really, really interesting. Specifically, the most of the cities. Remember how I was describing them? I'd be like, well, they're only a quarter full, and they seal off the rest of the town. So 3/4 of the city is just completely sealed off, because it's nobody lives there, and all sorts of weird monsters hold up in there. And it's really good in terms of providing tension and making and kind of giving you a ghost town vibe in what is otherwise a rather functional town.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have a lot of questions of why did they build all that stuff? They're a monster.
Because it's a ruin. It used to be big because it was completely filled up.
Right.
And then it used to be the town was built up in the reign of Sigik, and then because Sigik she pushed back the snow, and so for multiple generations, they were able to build up this big city, and then as always, Sigik built everything to last, and so that when she dies and eventually the snow comes back, the city can't sustain that population. People have to leave, and you're left with what few people remain, plus a giant ruin of the rest of the town.
That has a bunch of golems that explode.
That's a None.
Oh, are we not talking about? Oh, we're talking about Mundra. Sorry.
Yeah, other towns in Mundra would have that kind of an issue going on.
I mean, that's
that comes back to my
you being able to design the macro really well, kind of paying off, right?
Yeah, that is a payoff for macro design.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, all my cities were fairly normal-ish. They just had, I
They're
think.
just unique. So that's the thing. Like, I can make a city unique through its reaction to the world around it, whereas you can make a city unique by basically via its own power, kind of regardless of what setting it's in.
Yeah, I think that's the big difference. Because the one I spent the most time in was the desert city of Razan, which had the Turkish coffee influence. It had a few bars. It had the baths. It had a whole revolution, which failed.
I do gotta say, I gotta put a bath in a fucking city.
They're great. You could just
They're great.
I had a villain who was this giant half-orc woman talk to the cleric at the party. All the cleric was alone without any weapons or anything.
Mm-hmm.
In the bathroom, the cleric could do nothing about it because, like, not gonna.
You had no weapons. No, that's and that's like Bazil. That's exactly why in my like vacation one shot, well, probably like
Mhm.
2-shot thing.
Same
I'm playing.
idea.
I'm getting them naked and in the bath so they can be absolutely defenseless for the funniest encounter of their life. They're
Yeah.
gonna have to. Yeah, it's
And
gonna be hilarious.
Well, for her, it was mostly terrifying because one of them
Oh, for sure.
was like,
It's
a barbarian versus a fucking healing cleric.
it's such an interesting like way to set the scene.
But yeah, no.
Yeah.
You know what Torgos never had, despite the fact that it would have been perfect for it?
What?
A fucking bathhouse.
Yeah, it was in a waterfall, dog. It could have been
great. I fucked up on that respect.
Plus, they mined a lot, so they had a lot of coal.
And that's what I'm saying in terms of like my own personal difficulties with city building, is that like Torgos's macro was great, and the politics of the city were great as well, but the micro was like, I feel like there was something to be desired in the micro.
That's fair. You know, we talked about how we could perfectly combine our two things. You know what you could do? I could just take any city you have, and I could just like work on it.
And just be like, hey Bazil, I've
This
got...
is my city, and I'd be like, okay, well,
you know
here's
what?
the
Hey Bazil, I'm building a campaign that's a steampunk campaign that you keep saying that you can't make, but you're still interested in. Do you want me to just throw you every fucking city I have?
Sure, throw me some cities. I'll give him the Bazil special of randomly putting little details that don't matter except to make the players feel like they haven't been here before.
Or maybe more interesting, give something interesting to go to. I'm trying to try to give that Wind Waker vibe.
Yeah.
Which
sure.
is
I mean,
my absolute favorite Legend of Zelda game of all time.
I need.
By the way, Sam.
Yes.
An accurate description of my current campaign could be Wind Waker meets Final Fantasy 12.
I never played 12.
Was that the bunny one? No, that was the bunny one, right?
That's the bunny one. That's the one with Franz in. But did you play 9?
I watched a speedrun of 9.
So you basically played it very
Yeah.
quickly.
I watched the first 3 hours of a speedrun of 9.
It's
Well,
okay.
it's
Not
not
the
that
entire
quick, huh?
Right.
It's like still like a 9-hour speedrun. But
Jesus Christ.
It's because you can't speedrun Final Fantasy 9.
yes, you
It's
can.
the most
It's
Final
just
Fantasy.
a little bit longer. Like the Wind Waker speedrun used to be 5 hours, and that was an extremely enjoyable 5-hour watch.
That's
Any
Back
percent?
when back when Narcissa was running it. Shit. Any percent? I don't remember. I think most of the time it was because there was no barrier skip. That's why me and Adam keep talking about barrier skip being this huge thing. Like
Oh, it was.
you did have to go through a lot of the game.
right, but
Yeah.
okay. So the campaign I'm doing, Airship, Steampunk, Final Fantasy 12, but you could think of it as in terms of Final Fantasy 9 as well, and like Wind Waker. Just
Sounds great.
right. I love it. It's also Sam. It's also Caravan Campaign.
Oh, this is the Caravan campaign.
This is the Caravan Campaign.
I'm very excited.
Except it's
That
not a
it is
caravan. It's just a cargo ship.
Still good.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, and yeah, the micro really is just kind of wondering what players see, right? What would make players look twice, right?
For sure.
Oh, we've got a visitor in this. Does Drew
What are you
know
guys up to?
So, hi Drew, you're currently being recorded right now. I just want to warn you ahead of time.
Oh, what?
You're being recorded because me, Sam, and Bazil are having. We try to do this weekly, but we're having our like RPG stuff discussion. If you want to join it, that I like.
Yeah.
if Bazil
We
is
have
cool.
mentioned it to you before.
We have mentioned it, yes.
No, but I didn't know you were like recording it.
Yeah, I am. I can't use my left hand right now, so I can't like type things out. So I was gonna record it.
Awkward. Wait.
But I'm recording it anyway, so I'll probably just upload it to YouTube when I'm done.
I've got a thing that's relevant.
To what?
Did you post it in the Discord?
I
He
did.
did. He posted it in the Discord.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, we're not starting a podcast.
I mean,
Zach-
I am gonna record it and upload it to YouTube.
Yeah, but this isn't a podcast, is it? Are we podcasting?
Kind of.
Is this a podcast?
I don't know.
Oh man, do I have to quit my job and become a podcaster now? I don't think I'd like that.
I don't know if I would like that either.
I mean, it's up to you, Sam. But I think the answer we all know.
Is-
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
The answer is
Yeah,
yes.
I have no choice.
There's no choice.
I
in
am.
this.
Hey, what the fuck? Get out of here! Why are you being so rude?
Notice me,
Yeah.
senpai.
Asshole.
It's really. I mean, to be more accurate, Drew, it's we're just
Come
having
here.
a conversation and I'm recording it. That's basically.
Come here.
That's more.
To
of
be
a-
more accurate, Drew, we're just three generic white dudes
We're just.
having.
I mean, we-
conversation
yeah.
over recording.
We have the
That we're
podcaster
recording and then
formula,
posting online. So it's not a podcast; it's a conversation.
and that's the thing. Like, that's why I don't really want to do. Like, there's enough straight white people talking about shit podcasts. To be-
Right.
Especially when it comes to D&D and
To be.
Oh, especially when it comes to D&D.
That's why
It's like-
I thought it was funny. That's all. It was like, man, this is appropriate right now.
I mean, is it a very appropriate
what's
joke?
the current discussion? And are you guys playing Minecraft while talking? Because
Yes, we are all on the
Minecraft
Minecraft
talking.
server.
Okay, well, I found
That's- Drew, that's why we started the Minecraft server, is so we could play Minecraft while we talk about this.
Oh,
We just didn't do it because Bizzle was so busy for a while.
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
okay.
So, we were.
But
So
we're talking about cities and city design.
and
That's a
cities
tough one.
interesting.
use cities and what makes them interesting. Yeah. And I just got Bazil to sign on to building out a bunch of like micro details for cities in a campaign I'm about to run.
Because I mean, building cities is part, and building campaigns in cities is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where the coral reef that I just found is.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
I would go visit there, but I can't use my left hand.
It's way too far. I'm not gonna go there. There's a jungle that's about that distance away as well, in a different direction, I think. That's how I found the bamboo.
I found something in a chest, along with a helmet with respiration too, and I was like, nice.
That is good.
You
Respiration.
should have told me you had found bamboo. Why did you find this?
All right. So, Drew, is there anything
What
you
up?
would like to add to our conversation about cities?
Well, Sam was about to tell me Bazil was about to tell me something, and then I interrupted. So sorry.
Wow.
About cities?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just that they're my favorite things
Thing
to
to
build,
design.
and they're campaigns within them. And I have a journal where I'm going to be filling out mostly cities, like fully fleshed cities for one shots. So it's a thing I could just take to game nights, for example, and just be like, let's have a one shot in this one city.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that the easiest sort of setting to do that do that in. It's a lot harder to have an adventure
I mean,
book
yeah,
that you can
there's
just
two.
bring.
There is the dungeon adventure, and then there's just a city. It depends on
Yeah.
what you're trying to do. Like, if you're trying to do a more open one shot, then a city's better for it. But if you're trying to do a like specific like crafted experience, then a dungeon's probably a little better.
That's a very good point.
Yep.
But yeah, the city I'm working on right now is called Promise, and it's a pirate town.
Pirate Town. That sounds
And he,
cool.
and he promises it'll be a good time.
Haha. Well, the promise is actually the promise of freedom. No laws.
Well, yeah. Oh,
Jeez,
that's
why? 'Cause
Tortuga.
People are trapped or like.
That's not Tortuga. Fucking, what's the name of that town?
Yeah, it's Tortuga.
Oh, it's Tortuga. Okay.
Yeah.
The
But promise
Isle of
is-
Tortuga.
Promise comes from there's an island. I think it's probably an island of actually, but there's an island on the Pathfinder map that's called Promise. It's just stole it from that.
Huh.
Because since I don't like building the macro in full world, I often
Yeah.
just take a map
That's
and then just either rename or use the names as I see them.
yeah. So Bazil. So the theme of this evening and the theme of all of our conversations is that I do macro pretty well and Bazil does micro really well, and
I'm learning.
Sam's learning. It's a great structure for like when you're thinking about like how to build campaigns and stuff like
Sam
that.
takes notes really well.
Sam does. He's the best note
Well,
taker
that's
ever.
the thing. Like, I don't really have much experience DMing things. All I really have as a background is I ran about 12 sessions of a long form thing I was doing with some friends, few who were new to RPGs, some were not. But I realized it was just too much for me to, on my current schedule, try to plan as I go. I wish I would have had more time to plan it out beforehand, so I ended up canceling that game. And
Were you guys reading every week though?
no, we were hardly ever meeting, mostly because people were busy. But like, it just felt like such a chore because I had so much work to do, and I honestly did not have that much time.
Yeah.
Oof.
That's
I
poopy.
think the scale of that campaign. So
I definitely was overzealous with my scale. Yes, correct, absolutely.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey, Sam. How many
Yes.
campaigns are you in right now?
3.
Okay.
So I'm in a Monday night, which we're the main game's on hold, and we're playing Final Fantasy stuff.
Wait,
we're
rewind. The like Final Fantasy 14 supplement for 5th edition, or
it's like a fan made supplement for 5th edition.
yes, I have seen it. It is fucking amazing.
It is cool. And then I'm playing Wednesday nights with you all, and then I have a whatever we can play with my friends from Huntington group.
Okay.
So I have a lot on my plate, RPG wise.
Okay.
yeah, he's got more on his plate than I do.
I know.
Wow.
Well, Bazil, you could have had one more on your plate, but you turned it down.
It's because I don't want to be playing more D&D.
Okay, good point.
Totally.
Like, if I had a lot of free time, I'd pick it up because steampunk does sound cool and I like RPGs. But like, if I'm going to be filling up a third slot when I'm going to be fairly busy starting like September, so I'll be
Yeah.
working a job and working a second potential job and taking a class and doing research. I don't want to pick up a steampunk D&D game.
That's true. That's true. Are you just?
Bazil,
in the
what do you
West-
think?
Oh no, Drew's also in another campaign that I'm running, which means hey Drew, you want to be in a steampunk campaign? Just be part of literally every campaign I'm in.
Is it? Are you running it? Or
I
let me
am running
rephrase.
it. Yes, I am running the campaign.
Let me rephrase that question. When/how?
Oh, probably usually Saturdays online. Not every Saturday, mind you. Once every 3 weeks on average.
I don't know. I tend to be kind of busy on Saturday.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I know. You and Haley go do stuff. You have lives.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Haley's just really good at planning for me to be busy.
I don't know if
'Cause-
that's... I suppose you're just doing a statement of fact there.
Yeah, it's not. That wasn't meant to be bad or good. It was
Yeah.
just she's a planner, and I'm not.
She is indeed a
So-
planner. I'll give her that.
That's why you guys go so good together.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why you guys are so amazing. It's basically like you... what is it? Like, you found a partner that would help you plan things like Lizzie did back in high school. I still find it so funny. Sorry. Totally off topic. Hey, Sam and Bazell, did you know back in high school, Drew like would say to all of his friends, "Let's go do this thing," and then someone
Make
else
other
would
people
actually make
plan
the
it.
plan. Yeah.
That's absolutely how my group worked, and that was absolutely Claire who was the planner.
Yeah.
Because
Claire
if
was the
anybody else
planner?
planned
I
shit,
could have seen her
Claire's
do
the planner.
either. Yeah.
Well, no, it was very specifically like if anybody else wanted to do a thing with everybody, they generally speaking were responsible for the plan, except for Drew. Drew would go get Lizzie to do it.
Is this Lizzie and Ben Lizzie?
Yeah. Wait, do you know?
Oh, damn,
I
you guys
keep
are-
forgetting. You like?
You've met all the people in your life, Drew.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because you
Drew.
were at your wedding.
Yeah, Drew.
Well, I met Lizzie and Ben at what's it called? A
Something
Book-
else. Yeah.
mystery book exchange for Christmas at Yanni's place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Drew forgets that he has crossed the streams on all of his friend groups.
Yeah, and now they hang out without me, and it's like, oh my god. All by myself.
Drew, I literally live 3 minutes from you.
I know.
Justin and
Look,
Laura
I'm
live
just
3 minutes
saying.
from you
I
now.
drove. I moved to Southern California, and Sam was like, "I'm totally gonna visit." He still doesn't.
It's
Wow.
hard. You're far away still.
Weird call out, but okay.
Yeah. It's a rough call out there.
I'm just gonna
Oh,
keep
fuck, it's
thinking if I give him enough shit.
I will come visit you. I promise.
Anyway,
Oh, I also no. There's also another reason why I have to come visit you, Bizzle. I owe you a very, very solid high five from Chris.
That is a long time coming for that high five.
When I showed him the Pokemon TED Talk thing I was gonna do, he's like, "Man, they really should be called bird Pokemon instead of flying type." And I'm like, you know, Chris, you're not the first person to say that. He's like, "Oh, we'll give them a huge high five." I'm like, I will high five Bazil for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I refuse to recognize that are birds.
You refuse to recognize?
Flying
Flying type.
Pokemon. Flying type Pokemon that aren't birds, like they're not flying
so
type.
what about like Charizard or Dragonite? Not
Yeah, they
flying
can
type?
go fuck themselves.
Even though they have wings. So wait,
They're dragon.
what makes something a bird? Because if it's being dinosaur-like, you know, dragons have that in common too. You could argue that dragons are scaly birds.
You could, but you'd be wrong.
Would I though?
Yeah.
Listen, birds gotta have feathers. You gotta be able to ruffle them.
Also, maybe less limbs.
Yeah, limbs.
I'd
are
argue
also
a wyvern could be considered a bird. You could maybe get me there, but a dragon has 4 legs.
Wait, so if there's like a bird looking like Pokemon, but it has 6 limbs, would you no longer consider it flying type?
Yeah, I'd consider exception to the rule. But I wouldn't consider Charizard an exception.
We're getting Pokemon fundamental down here.
Yeah, I'm noticing this.
Anyway, should probably
I
change
like
subject back to
Charizard.
cities.
It's not, he belongs in Dragon type.
Well, Drew. Okay, so Drew, what do you think is like the most important aspect of a city in a campaign?
I think the most important aspect is giving it a flavor. It has to be memorable in some way, otherwise, why bother describing it at all? So,
We agree.
huh?
We agree.
Okay, so I have an important question because I'm just going to use examples from my own campaign that we already talked about. Drew, what do you remember? Is there anything that comes immediately to mind when you think of Torgos?
Well, that was the city. It's gonna be like. So I only remember one city out of, out of all of them in Torgos because it's a giant not ravine, but split.
See, I told you, I am best when geography is the important factor.
Well, there's.
No, it's not. Honestly, it's because we spent a lot of time there, and you got to describe it more than once. So well, what was important about Torgos? Well, you put a giant fucking dragon there, and we had this giant siege of Torgos that we had to go through. So we had to go through different parts of the city where it's kind of you explained what was happening. Oh, this is their growth room where they grow all this weird shit, and you're oh, okay, and We had to go over like the bridges that crossed over the chasm and like eventually go up top and fight a dragon.
I guess
it's
Did we do
Drew's
anything?
making-
Sorry.
I was just gonna say Drew's making a really good point. That is like, you can detail out a city as much as you want, but if you never describe it to your players, it's
does
never
not.
gonna stick.
Yeah.
I do want to point out other like, I mean, I'm bad with the names, but Dwedak, right? Like that one was memorable because it had these like you described it as being underground, and I think you had these giant pillars go from the underground to the above ground.
Yep.
And that stuck with me. Of the city where the Colosseum was, the stuck to me was that there was a Colosseum and there was a merfolk place that was made of coral.
Yeah.
Those are the two things. Because those were the two things that kind of stuck out besides, I think it was snowy there, right? It's cold there?
Yeah, there was the ice giants, the Jotun.
Yeah. But yeah, like, I mean, but like for the most part, the things that stuck out were like the giant Colosseum where we spent all our time, which I suppose makes sense.
Yeah.
But also, like the fact that we had, or like the fact that there was like just bright pink coral in the middle of the city that people carved buildings out of, right?
Are you guys? Is this the fucking? Is this a city Sam made or me?
No, it's
You.
This was
Right.
where we had it was Ace Class City.
It's Ice Class's city had the
Stormguard.
Thank you.
Stromgard. Yeah, I forgot about the coral. Oh, well, you mentioned it. I was like, wait a second, I built this. Yeah, and then there was the big Colosseum, and then I had the like goblins that were basically like Norse trolls.
Yeah, those didn't
Well,
really.
you also had the Jotun too.
I
Yeah.
did have the ice giants.
They
Yeah,
weren't in
those
the
guys.
city.
They were outside the
They-
city.
they
They attacked the
attacked the
city.
city.
They attacked the
Yeah,
city.
they attacked the city. But like, I mean, the goblins didn't stick to me as much. Maybe because
I
were
don't
they, like,
remember the goblins at all.
yeah.
I remember
they-
the goblins
they
a
didn't have
bit.
The goblins are important insofar as Nick got them to make a bunch of statues.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that's
Nick
right,
Nick
sure.
ran for office with the goblins. And no, they made the
Sure.
statues for the
Also-
champion, and they what's it called? Wasn't there something about his dick being in the statues?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like comically.
They made them with comically large penises.
Yeah,
Right.
And the reason you remember so much of this is you reread the whole thing.
Yeah, that's true. No, I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, yeah, I mean, upon recollection, yes, there were goblins. I couldn't tell you where in the city they were, right? Like, they didn't have a place in the city. There was just a scene with them.
Right. Yeah. That's true. They actually lived just outside the city, but
Well, there you go. Let me think. Were there other cities? I mean, we spent a very brief time in that jungly place,
yeah. Oh yeah, that city too.
but that's outside of the fact that it was in a jungle. I can't tell you a single thing about it.
Yeah. Well, they had like an underground dungeony kind of thing, like an underground library thing.
Yeah, we spent.
I remember reading books there.
Yeah, it was great. I remember getting put in a bubble because I accidentally knocked down a bookshelf.
But yeah, so probably the
Good
most
stuff.
memorable cities in the campaign were Torgos, Dwedak, and
I'd stop there.
yeah, let's stop there.
No
I
offense.
appreciate the fact that you can't even remember the city you're trying to.
I was trying to remember Stromgard, which I literally already made, like,
Yeah.
had already done. So that was a me fucked up moment. But, so, I mean, there were other cities too, but they weren't quite as relevant. There was the city where the Thief Guild is from, and that was the only important.
Did we go
We're
there?
getting the most
You
important city
did.
of all.
What was the most important city of all?
Drew's city.
Oh, Drew's fucking city. God
New
damn it.
Drogos.
New Drogos.
Jogos.
You and I remembered it.
Well, the thing is that, like, I include New Drogos as part of Torgos.
How
dare you. Yeah.
Yeah. The other city. Yeah, I think in my campaign, most of my cities. Well, that's not true. One of them didn't really stand out, but that's because they spent literally a session there in transit. But I'd say I managed to. But we also spent enough time there, right?
Right.
And that's the thing is, I think maybe the jungle stick out because we didn't spend enough time there, and we the only reason Stromgarde didn't stick out as much is we just spent the entire time at the Colosseum. We didn't visit the city in the same
We
way,
did it.
right?
We did eventually, but that was way later, and we were already kind of burnt out.
Yeah. But we weren't like we didn't interact with the city, right? We interacted with the Colosseum, and then everyone a player would, right? Like how Nick went to the goblins, or how I grew attached to the merfolk and their quarrel. But like for the most part, that was kind of like we kind of just all hung out in the Colosseum, and
Mhm.
Yeah.
and that can happen anywhere.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
so I guess that's something very important with cities then, is that they need to be places where you can have interaction.
Oh, I mean, that's the whole point of a
or-
city, right?
Well, more accurately, it's got to be like it. You have to diversify your actions within a city. Like, if you want a city to feel unique,
Oh, shit,
you need
there's
to
a town
have
here.
like different things that you can do there, or like, you know, it should feel alive and full of different places.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. It's just, I guess for me, that's why you play something in a city and not the middle of nowhere, right? It's because it should feel alive.
Listen, buddy, I will do a campaign in a completely blank and empty field, and you will love it.
No, we won't.
Yeah.
Turns out we won't.
Oh, I
wait.
mean, maybe not. It's not blank, but I know a place where it's empty.
Okay. Shoot, go for it.
And this is the fucking where we're at now. It's empty in there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
empty. There's a bunch of monsters running around.
And lots of memories to be found.
Yeah, it's a treasure hunt. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, the joke aside, yeah, I mean, cities. For me, you play in a city specifically to interact with the people within it.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the idea that
The fuck?
of earlier of like city is the people inside it, not the buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Minecraft, you're...
Though the buildings are important, monuments, remember.
Yeah, I mean, the city is like describing what the players are seeing as around. Either architecture, a weirdly colored stone, anything like that, right? Anything to make the city stick out more than you'd expect it to. And borrowing, you could borrow from the Durgar from Skyrim. You can borrow from fucking, I don't know, Aladdin, I guess. Or you could borrow from, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could borrow from history in various places. You're careful to not borrow religious imagery, preferably, or things like that. Borrow, don't appropriate, I guess. It's not an easy line to tread.
It is not.
Just why-
Well, so I think a big difference for borrowing versus appropriating is you can borrow ideas and then kind of like turn them into your own. So like, I think generally speaking, steampunk is pretty good at this. Like, steampunk will just borrow from like random like science garbage and then just kind of like do whatever the fuck it wants with it, but it doesn't feel like.
Well, it's not a culture either.
That's fair. You know what? Let me use a different example. I think Magic the Gathering, with its designs, borrows from different cultures, but generally does a good job of not feeling like it's being tropey, because they kind of have like their own culture and then their own reasoning. So like if you have a desert, like some kind of desert civilization, you I ended up in a really
They
weird
have a lot of Egyptian imagery, very explicitly.
They have a lot.
But the difference is that that's an ancient civilization of a religion that no one, or
Actually,
as far as I know, no one actually.
Well,
studied.
no, I was just gonna say that they
That's different.
generally they give them a lot of like robes and stuff, because in the desert wearing like having protection is important, and
Yeah.
wearing
Okay, so the design decisions for Amonkhet, which is what you're referring to, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
They very specifically were trying to evoke ancient Egyptian tropes.
Yeah, I mean that's
Like they were specifically aimed at the tropes associated with the historical past of ancient Egypt.
That's why they had a Cleopatra creature, and that's why they had a Tutankhamun creature. I would actually argue, probably in terms of Magic the Gathering and how they handle it, I would wonder I suppose a better comparative example would be like Girapur.
You mean Kaladesh?
No, Kaladesh is the plane. Girapur is the city.
Oh, I see. Okay, sure.
Yeah. So how they handled the city of Girapur, and I'm sure I said it differently 3 times.
Well, keep at it, and we'll see how many ways you can say it.
Let's see how there are any different ways I can say this weird fantasy name. Well, fantasy.
It's not
name.
weird.
It's not weird.
It's a very good name.
It is a solid name. Like I'm not no joke. It's a really really good name. I can't say it to save my life. But
Anyway,
that city in particular, it was very heavily Indian inspired, and it seems almost not quite modern, but it's got a very specific vibe that is kind of like they just borrowed elements. They borrowed visual aesthetic elements from India and tried to translate that in but they didn't bring in any of the thematic elements that would be associated with India. That's the
Persian than Indian.
Is it really more Persian?
I'm not as.
My point is that when you're borrowing from something, you're using it as an inspiration, but then you come up with your own like reasons and or aesthetic for that. Whereas if you're strictly like,
Well, I mean that's specifically the problem with appropriation is that you are taking something that is not of your culture and you are stripping it of its meaning and applying it either completely or of the parts that you don't care about.
I guess, but I think a problem with appropriation is when you're using that to then treat or like a good
Using it as a representative for that entire culture.
Yeah, kind of like how the for like Native Americans, right? You had all those like horrible cartoons about them like going around and like banging drums and like dancing in a circle and like.
Well, that's not appropriation. That's just straight up racism.
Racism,
Like,
yeah, but they did get that from some part. Like that is something, not that in particular, but they did have a similar kind of like ceremony, right? Like.
Sure.
I don't actually know that
Right,
much
but, like,
about any
mocking
particular
someone-
one.
is it appropriate? Like, that's not exactly the same thing. Like, if you look at things like and what's it called? If you ever watch
The easiest example of appropriation is white yogi.
yeah.
Not just
White
yoga
yogi,
instructors, but like white gurus and stuff.
I was gonna say
But they're using it to better themselves, right?
No, they're using Indian culture and Indian religion to make money.
To make money. To better themselves puts it in a positive connotation. That's not what I meant. What I meant is that they're using it for personal gain.
sorry. So there's also what's it called?
Like
Even if
weeds and dreadlocks.
Emperor's New Groove. Mikey Newman did a really good video about Emperor's New Groove. He talks a lot about how it's a hilarious movie, but he also up front says, hey, this was a corporation who's like, hey, we're going to pick and choose the parts about this civilization, this Incan
that we
civilization,
represent. Yeah.
and we're just going to, make a ton of money off of it, and, cast a bunch of white actors, and, that kind of stuff. And that kind of thing is appropriation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, which would bring Kaladesh into the fold of appropriation.
I think in a sense, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is you can't be it's being inspired by things that are not of your culture has some level of appropriation. I think treating it with the respect that it deserves and treading carefully is the best you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Generally avoiding religious, unless it's a dead religion like Egyptology, I think is safe.
Listen,
right?
yeah, exactly. Like, you're not going to offend a lot of people if you appropriate Ra, because not a lot of people worship Ra anymore.
But you are going to offend a lot of people if you appropriate fucking Allah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That will get you in trouble.
Part of the Judeo-Christian God.
Well, I mean, he is just a Judeo-Christian god.
He is. Yeah, it's literally. There's only one.
But you
God.
could, but the way the Muslim people worship is very
It's
different from the way the Christian. And so
I
like
agree.
that's what I mean by that. Or as is most common, Hindi gods, right?
Oh,
How
yeah.
many
Yeah.
gods
Oh,
have
yeah.
arms? What culture?
I mean, that's the thing that you were mentioning about the Borderlands 3. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they're treading. They got to tread carefully with that new character. You know.
Yeah, and I mean they're
Gods.
appropriating other religious imagery, but it's biblical for the most part. Which dominant culture and all that. When does that stop becoming
It's hard
appropriation?
it's hard to appropriate your own culture.
That and also, it's like Christianity has forced itself through colonialism everywhere. That's
Well-
not appropriation at this point, as much as it was just forced assimilation of this culture into everyone's daily life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But what I'm saying, like you can't appropriate your own culture. You can make a commentary on your own culture, but you can't
No.
It's hard to
It's impossible to actually appropriate something that is already intrinsic to your own background.
So,
Another example of bad appropriation is what's it called? Horizon Zero Dawn, which is so very, 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 very appropriating from Indian from Indian tribes, Native American tribes rather.
Oh, native tribes.
Yeah.
I never played that game.
I've just seen it. It's a gorgeous game, but like there's and also in Magic, Huatli's design is maybe slightly better.
I thought Huali was supposed to be more Incan in design.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
Ixalan was a very
Yeah.
Incan plane, and I mean,
Yeah.
that goes along with the same.
Well,
thing I was
they're
talking-
they're specifically Mesoamerican. That was
Right.
their inspiration was Mesoamerica, not Inca.
Yeah,
They,
but
they,
I
did,
thi-
they added Incan elements though. Like not to say that you're wrong. You are probably very right in that there were a lot of Incan elements in
But you're wrong.
in that. It's just that their primary focus was in Mesoamerica and not the Incans.
Sure,
I
no.
do- I do want to say like there are times where those characters have like feathers and stuff, and I think that's actually interesting and almost better because the dinosaurs have feathers, right? Like
Yeah.
of course they would design with that sort of stuff in
Yeah, they fit-
mind.
They
And that's where you start paying attention to why you're using such things, right? And like finding a space between appropriation and just inspiration.
why do the Ixalan, the native Ixalani, have dinosaurs? Like, why do they have feathers in all their outfits? Because feathered dinosaurs.
Yeah, but I mean that's the thing is that as then like if you start with okay, well what do they have access to? They have access to feathers. What does that mean in terms of like
Any culture that uses feathers normally, or
well yeah, I mean like into where you're going to draw your inspiration. Yeah, you're going to look at that already had feathers, right? And that's going to limit. But like there's at that point, is it appropriation or was it just like this was my restriction and rather than like designing the wheel, right?
Hmm.
I looked to what was already there for inspiration, and I think that's at least headed the right direction. But I mean I'm just I'm a generic white guy. So I'm
Don't worry, we're all generic white guys here.
yeah.
Hey,
So I mean
hey.
I can't have fine say on this from what I've looked at.
Oh.
That's a thing that for me is at least present as a consideration. It's like, are
Absolutely.
you doing this purely for aesthetic, or is there a lore reason as to why you're looking at this stuff? Always examine what your inspirations are and why they're your inspiration. I guess is the final thing to say, right?
but don't. Yeah. No. Why?
Something hurt you?
Oh no, that's why. Because it.
But yeah, because I mean, it's always going to depend, but you should always examine. I acknowledge for Razan Bar, Middle Eastern, Ottoman Empire things, like Turkish coffee, a lot of, and for me, a lot of that was, I mean, the Turkish coffee is a way of preparing coffee. It's not the same. It's a way on the street to prepare coffee. It's not a ceremony, right?
Mm-hmm.
I felt comfortable with that. I did it, right? I borrowed a lot of Egyptian stuff for that city as well, namely in the villain and his god, while also borrowing from like Game of Thrones. But like once again, I treat ancient Egypt as fair game just because it's ancient. Yeah. And today's Egypt does not. I mean, it's there. It's a part of them as much as like the Roman Colosseum is part of Italy culture, and that it's there and it's architecture, and that's influenced them in some ways. But like they're Muslim majority country that is very different from ancient Egypt.
Oh yeah.
So
There's been a few thousand years between ancient Egypt and
yeah, just a few. But yeah, and so yeah, I think that's a really good place to.
Well, actually, it depends on
like talking about cities and the micro and the regions like that, like making sure we talk about appropriation feels like a. I'm glad we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad it came up as well. But yeah, so that was a lovely conversation. I'm going to stop the OBS recording if you have any final thoughts.
I learned a lot.
I'm just gonna have one quick final thought on the city campaign stuff. Think three things. Think crime, political intrigue, and always think of the motivation of people and player motivation, right? What not player necessarily, NPC motivation, right? Because it's such an open-ended place, and because there are so many working factions, it's a lot easier to, rather than plan encounters, plan plans, right? Mm-hmm. And those plans will come into action, and depending on how players interact with the whatever faction plans exist, that's how the campaign evolve, rather than just an encounter, right? Or a series of encounters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple thoughts just on that, because we never quite got to city campaigns. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we didn't. I mean, we could have an entire thing about campaign structure, and then we could have a city structure. It's wild. We have so many options.
Yeah. We finished our zooming in, kind of.
We finished our zooming in. Oh
yeah. Well, we've been zooming city. Right. We did a world, country, city. Unless we want to do individual. Building an NPC next.
Like building an NPC. That could be interesting. Okay, we could do organizations too. But we'll come up with something. Anyways, wonderful conversation we all just had. I'm gonna stop recording. We can keep talking about this after.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Oh my god.